Hang on. Okay. I don't think we actually have the physical book that has. I guess there's a sixth canto part 3 in this version of the printing of the Bhagavatam that we do not have. So I will rely on Tarkaprabhu. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 14, which is, what is it, Chitraketu's? Is it King Chitraketu's lamentation? Text 7 through 10. Hachana samshayo puyan trotum kotuhalam prabho ya porushena samare sahasraksham atoshayat. Or I'm going to click on this database link actually. Pull it up there. Okay, so I'll read 7, 8, and 9, and then we can recite 10. My dear Lord Shukadeva Goswami, although Vritrasura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear this from you. Text 8. Shri Sutuvacha Parikshito Tasam Prashnam Bhagavan Badarayanihi Nishamya Shraddhanasya Pratinandya Vacho Pravit. Sri Suta Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent question, Shukadeva Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. Shri Shukuvacha Shrinushpavahito Rajan Itihasam Imam Yata Shrutam Dvaipayana Mukhan Narada Devaladapi. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard for the mouths of Vyasadeva, Narada, and Devala. Please listen with attention. And text 10. Asivraja Sarvabhauma Shudasene Shubai Nipa Chitriketur iti kyato yasit kamatun mahi. Would anyone like to repeat text 10?
Sigraja Sarvabhauma Surasena Suraseneshu Vai Nirpa Chitraketor iti Gyato Yasya Sit Kamadun Mahi.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jana, you just hopped on. Would you like to recite text 10? Okay, word for word. Asit, there was Raja, one king, Sarvabhauma, an emperor of the entire surface of the globe, Shudaseneshu, in the country known as Shudasena. By, indeed, Nirpa, O king, Chitraketu, Iti, thus, Khyata, celebrated, Yasya, of whom, Asit, was, Kamatu, supplying all the necessities, Ahi, the earth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O King Parikshit, in the province of Shurasena there was a king named Chitraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities for life. Purport. Here the most significant statement is that the earth completely produced all the necessities of life during the time of King Chitraketu. As stated in the Isha Upanishad, Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yad Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Punjita Ma Gridha Kasyasvidhanam. Everything animate. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I just lost. Okay. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Krishna, the Supreme Controller, has created the material world, which is completely perfect and free from scarcity. The Lord supplies the necessities of all living entities. These necessities come from the earth, and thus the earth is the source of supply. When there's a good ruler, that source produces the necessities of life abundantly. However, when there is not such a good ruler, there will be scarcity. This is the significance of the word kamatuk. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Kamam Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kama Tukamahi. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the clouds showered all the water the people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of men in profusion. We have experienced that in some seasons the rains produce abundance, and in other seasons there is scarcity. We have no control over the earth's productiveness, for it is naturally under the full control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his order, the Lord can make the earth produce sufficiently or insufficiently. If a pious king rules the earth according to the Shastric injunctions, there will naturally be regular rainfall and sufficient produce to provide for all men. There will be no question of exploitation, for everyone will have enough. Black marketeering and other corrupt dealings will then automatically stop. Simply ruling the land cannot solve man's problems unless the leader has spiritual capabilities. He must be like Maharaj Yudhishthira, Parikshit Maharaj, or Ramachandra. Then all the inhabitants of the land will be extremely happy. Om Ganatamanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Anaritamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Rama. So I just want to pull up a chapter I've been reading. So, yeah, Prabhupada's taking this opportunity. Well, first of all, let me back up before I even say that. The first few verses that we read, 7, 8, and 9, are packed with things that could be spoken about. And even text 6 that Dacia read yesterday but didn't give class on, is so deep, again, going back to this point of Ritrasura that he one, as Harichakra Prabhu was giving the example, one should not judge a book by its cover. And so maybe I'll speak on that a little bit later because, of course, Vitrasura was in the guise of a demon, but there's actually so many devotees throughout the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita that, externally, like their circumstances could look, let's say, the thing I'm thinking of for is that they look externally less renounced, let's say because they have opulence, they're living at home, or they have an entire kingdom like Yudhishthir or Parikshit Maharaj, um, or I mean even Bali Maharaj, he had so much. But or they could look like maybe they're at a disadvantage, for example, Queen Kunti. But actually, they're such exalted devotees. And the interesting thing is that they'll present themselves in a very humble way as though they're not, as though, oh, Queen Kunti saying, I'm just a low-born woman. King Yudhishthir is like straight up presenting himself as like a Grihamedi. And it's a symptom of the Vaishnava humility. So it becomes from just the material, or maybe even the first time reading the Bhagavatam, it can be quite confusing actually because like wait who's actually the best devotee and who what is bhakti determined on? Is it determined on you only have you know like a homeless person, a stick and a handkerchief tied to it, and that those are all your possessions, and that's the best devotee? Or is it the best devotee is the one who has rules the entire land like Yudhishthira Maharaj? Or is the best devotee a man, or is it a woman, or is it a child, or is it an old? So all these like coverings, maybe in the first time reading or just with our material senses, it can be a little bit bewildering, or not how we would judge things materially, or even from a impious perspective. Because yeah, Vritrasura is in a very inauspicious body in a sense. Anyway, more on that later. That was just a sneak peek. But first, I will address the purport that we just read. So, in the purport, Prabhupada, let me just pull it up again. Prabhupada is taking the opportunity to speak, to quote this verse from the Sri Ishopanishad. This verse always reminds me of Vaisheshika Prabhu because I have heard him quote it so often. That one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. And that, if there's good Krishna conscious leadership in the world, that there is no scarcity. So in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada really goes off on like the importance of good leadership and also, yeah, just how a Kshatriya should rule. And in fact, how all the classes, all the Varnas should act in order for society to function properly and for everybody to get everything they need and be very happy in the state. And he condemns in so many places that this industrialization has completely ruined everything. Society, also people, there's scarcity due to industrialization. What's that? There's one purport where he's even talking about like, how does he say it? Something like basically people can't eat nuts and bolts, but that's what we're so focused on producing. It's just like, once he puts it like that, it's, yeah, it takes a lot of humility to, um, if that's something, maybe if you are an industrialist or something like that, it can be quite jarring. So I'm just trying to find these, which chapter this is in. Actually, mm, I think I know which chapter. Whoops. Oh, I was trying to find, do you know why Vanny Quotes doesn't come up on here? Is it blocked by our Wi-Fi? Okay, anyway. Oh, it's because I'm on it's because I'm looking up on Bing. That's why. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I'll just give me 1 second and I'm gonna find it. Okay, maybe I'm not. Anyway, if anybody finds that report, it's in the first canto. But and this computer drives me crazy. Anyway, so yeah, Prabhupada speaks like, for example, right now I'm reading the chapter of the birth of Emperor Parikshit. So the verses, one by one, it's going through. He's going to be very learned, like great sage like Narada Muni, and a great ruler like Yudhishthir. And so going through piece by piece all the qualities that Parikshit Maharaj has as a leader. And in one purport, I was reading to another devotee because it was so impactful that, uh, a great Kshatriya has to be also a great sage because unless they're very intelligent spiritually, they won't be able to control all the other very intelligent people, both, yeah, both spiritually, like control other sages that are spiritually enlightened as well as offering like I guess material advantages like astrology, like astrological readings, medicine, things like that. So he's really got to be a jack of all trades, an all-rounded kind of devotee, um, which I just found so amazing. Okay, there we go. So Yeah, he was saying, I'll just read you some of the verses that explain the character of Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, it says, oh, the learned Brahmana said, O son of Pritha, this child should be exactly like King Ikshvaku, son of Manu, in maintaining all those who are born. And as for following the Brahminical principles, especially in being true to his promise, he shall be exactly like Ram, the personality of Godhead, the son of Maharaj Dasharath. This child will be a munificent donor of charity and protector of the surrendered, like the famous King Shibi of the Ushinara country. And he will expand the name and fame of his family, like Bharata, the son of Maharaj Dushyanta. Amongst great bowmen, this child will be as good as Arjuna. He will be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as the ocean. This child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy a shelter as the Himalaya mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhishthir or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the lord of the Kailash hill, Shiva. And he will be the resort of everyone, like the supreme personality of Godhead Narayan, who is even the shelter of the goddess of fortune. This child will be almost as good as Lord Sri Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity, he will be as great as King Rantidev, and in religion, he will be like Maharaj Yayati. So okay, I'll read two more. So it says, this child will be like Bali Maharaj in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaj, performer of many Ashvamedha horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. So just verse after verse, really explaining, yes, all the qualities of Parikshit Maharaj, how he's going to be a ruler. And you can see, man, he's checking a lot of boxes that we probably didn't even know need to be checked for a ruler, right? Like in these purports, also Prabhupada's explaining that, most politicians are just wanting to get reelected to fill their pockets, or sometimes it says fill their bellies. But Parikshit Maharaj, in a moment's notice, he was ready to renounce the whole kingdom. So whenever, somebody's trying to kick you out of office, usually they're clinging for dear life. I want, I want to make that money or have that power or have that appreciation. But at a moment's notice, because he was so learned, as we're hearing here, and so Brahminical actually, um, yeah, he was able to renounce these things and such a great and all of this, you know, uh, austerity, patience, like learning, like a brahmana, was due to his being a great devotee of the Lord. So all the boxes are checked just from that. Um, and then one interesting point that I thought to add that's also spoken about in these verses, just speaking of great rulers and their qualities, is that it says that he'll be like King Shivi. So Shivi, yeah. This child will be a munificent donor of charity and protector of the surrendered, like the famous King Shivi of the Ushinari country. So, anybody know about King Shivi?
He's the one that gave his own body.
Yeah. So he well anyway, since you probably couldn't hear colors through, I won't do the spoiler, but I'll just tell the story. So King Shivi, there was a pigeon that was being chased by, so Agni took the form of pigeon, and I want to say it was Indra that took the form of a like a hawk, basically. And so I want to make anyway. I'll check later if that's yeah. The king of heaven took the shape of a pigeon hunter bird, an eagle, and Agni, the fire god, took the shape of a pigeon. So the pigeon was being chased by the eagle, and then he takes shelter on the lap of Maharaj Shivi, and then the eagle comes to King Shivi, and he's like, "Give me that pigeon. I want that pigeon to eat." And then uh, yeah, and then King Shivi's like, please don't kill this pigeon. And the eagle just refuses to accept King Shivi's offer. So then King Shivi says, okay, what I'll do is I'll cut off a piece of flesh from my own body that's equal to the weight of this pigeon so that, you can have something to eat. So the pigeon's on one side of the scale and he's cutting off his flesh and putting it on, but the pigeon is just getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And no amount of flesh that he puts on is equaling its weight. So finally, King Shiva just puts his whole self on the scale. And then the demigods were so pleased with him. And so Indra and Agni, the fire god, they disclose their identity, say, oh, it's actually us. And they bless him. And then Narada Muni also glorifies him because, he's so great in his acts of charity and protection as a leader. And so yeah, this is such a great example. I was so struck by this that, a great king, a leader who could be so puffed up with, all their opulence and power and what is this little, I mean, a pigeon's I think they call it like a street rat or a flying rat some places, if you're in like a city, they're like, oh, the pigeons, they're just like rats basically with wings. So this, I guess, kind of low class bird, but he was willing to do that for the protection. And the Kshatriyas too, they wouldn't, whenever they went off to battle, they would have to be, um, they would have to come back like somewhat harmed, like that they had actually engaged on the front lines of the battle, that they're not just, also as Prabhupada makes the points in the purport, so they're not just sitting back in their armchairs and letting everybody else and just like, calling shots from behind the scenes and sending millions of people off to die overseas. But they were actually on the front line. So it's, at first, whenever maybe we read the purport like today, it can be hard to believe like, oh yeah, just because there's a good ruler, then everybody's gonna basically everything's going to be prosperous and the land is going to provide all that we need and the rain is going to provide all that we need. It seems almost mythological, actually. But once we actually really get into the character of what these rulers are like, um, yeah, it's not so far-fetched anymore that, they're willing to like sacrifice their whole lives, even for some like, well, a low-class bird. And then that they give in so much charity and they really care for the people and that they're not just developing slaughterhouses and industries. And I mean, I think about like Timu, that website, or like I guess there's other ones like Shein, or um yeah, just basically websites where you get things very cheap from China. And there's like so many people starving in the world, but it's just like you just go on Temu and you're like, I definitely need something like that's like the perfect size brush to clean my windowsill because I can't just do it with a cloth or something. That would be too difficult. Or I mean, you can go on there and it's just like, oh, I never knew that I need this. And then it's like some electronic device for like $3. And it just becomes they make it so addictive. It's almost like going to a casino, to be honest. They have all these things that pop up and you like spin this wheel and it's like you got a 70% discount. Um, but yeah, there's people starving in the world. I mean, heck, the workers making that stuff might even be starving practically. So it just really, whenever we get down to it, even just looking at it materially, it just doesn't make any sense. And we can see what Prabhupada's saying in the first canto purports is so true that, yeah, it's just mismanagement. The world is actually producing enough. It's not an overpopulation problem or anything like that. It's really just, um, mismanagement. Like, I mean, I don't know so much about China, but let's just take, for example, um, I don't know if they still have like the one child policy or something like that because there was so much parent overpopulation. Also, what is China famous for is so much industrial enterprise. So it's like, well, and China's a huge country. I mean, it's like, and I think there's parts of it that um, aren't super populated. You know, the East Coast is famously very populated, and then the western part as well. Um, but I don't know so much about the middle. Maybe there is, maybe somebody's been there. But it's a huge country, so there's definitely ample resources. Similarly with the US, you know, it's like we're growing so many grains, but what does most of it go to? It goes to livestock, and people kill and eat the meat. And it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, heck, even in India, you know, so much of that grain is grown, and countries that aren't first world, so much of the grain grown there gets fed to the American livestock, and then we eat the meat or ship out the meat, but then there's also people starving in the countries that are growing the grains. It just, none of it makes sense. It makes sense for, as Prabhupada says, it makes sense for the select few that are benefiting, the, you know, the 1% that are benefiting from all the exploitation. But for the mass of people, it makes absolutely no sense. So whether you want to think about in this purport how it's speaking about the basically supernatural influences that, let's say, the demigods will be pleased if there's a good Krishna conscious ruler. Even if you took that out of the picture, like it's going to rain the same. We're not going to get, even if we got a great ruler, it's not going to rain anymore. Or the soil isn't going to suddenly become more fertile. You know, the demigod of whoever's in charge of the soil being more pleased. If we even take that out of the picture, just to have a ruler that's competent and cares about the people and is like religious to the point where they don't allow organized slaughterhouses, that would solve 90% of the problems. Yeah. So hopefully one day, if we, with the expansion of Varnashram Dharma, or at least having a locale where it's being demonstrated, yeah, that it can actually work, then hopefully that will influence others and they can see, hey, it's actually not a bad way to live, especially if something catastrophic happens like COVID, nuclear war, things like that. I mean, the Amish have been going strong for so long, and there's so many TV shows even about the Amish. Granted, a lot of them are like Breaking Amish, or there's like a UK equivalent. But when times get really tough, for example, COVID, so many people were like, I am out of here. I'm going to the border of and like setting up a commune. And I mean, basically, in a sense, living like the Amish, but without God in the center. So if we can, you know, show people, hey, it works. And I guess what, it works even better with God in the center, then that's a great advantage. So anyway, that's that. The second thing that I wanted to speak on is what I brought up in the beginning of class is these previous verses. Let me pull them up. The previous verses 7, 8, 9. So I'll read them again. So this is 7. My dear Lord Shukadeva Goswami, although Vritrasura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear from you. So just in this translation alone, and like I said, if anybody wants to go back and read text 6 and the purport, the same point that I'm going to speak on is made, that, you know, externally, just by the material covering of Vritrasura, seems very inauspicious for material advancement. And as I was giving at the beginning of the class, the examples of, for example, Yudhishthira Maharaj, you know, there's the part in the first canto that he's, in his humility, is like seemingly lamenting, you know, oh, well, he has all these riches and all these kingdoms, and he's just absorbed in his in all these opulences in his household life. So he's presenting himself very humbly as a Grihamedi and as a sense enjoyer in household life, but actually he's the most exalted devotee of Lord Krishna. And he's Dharmaraj, he's religion personified. So yeah, it's so nice. I always love this point that, bhakti goes beyond just the external circumstances, uh, the varna, what service we're doing, what service we're not doing, anything like that. It's really a matter of the heart between the devotee and Krishna. And of course, we have external things, rules and regulations and auspicious activities and yeah, just things that we can do, like attending Mangalarti, things like that. Um, yeah, that are very beneficial for spiritual life, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that the one that is able to do all those things because whatever they have all the time or all the health or anything like that, that they're just like automatically the better the better devotee. So it's not just an external thing. Of course, we want as much as possible. We want to do all the things that are extremely conducive to spiritual life that Prabhupada, has laid out for us. But we can't just check off a bunch of boxes, and that means that, we're the best. Or because we're not checking off this box or that box, that means we're the worst. So, for example, I was just hearing this morning that I was explaining how Lord Chaitanya was speaking to, I think it was Shivananda Sain, and I don't remember this pastime very well, but basically Shivananda Sain, yeah, just was Lord Chaitanya was bringing up a point about household life, and then by the end of the conversation, he was just like, just chant Hare Krishna, teach others to chant Hare Krishna. Like, you don't have to worry so much about all this external, like, Grihasta versus Brahmachari versus Sannyasi versus this or that. Like, what's that verse or Lord Chaitanya? It's that one that's like, I'm not a sannyasi,
Yeah.
brahmana.
When we say more deity service every day.
Oh, it's that one. Okay. Anyway, so if anybody can post it in the chat, that would be great. So, yeah, I just love that point. And then similarly, I was talking about in the beginning of class about Queen Kunti. She's also presenting herself. She's like, Krishna, how can, you know, you're so great, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can we women know you? And it's like she's presenting herself as like it's an inauspicious kind of birth in this sense, or it's lower or something, or there's less intelligence. Yet she's literally seeing Krishna and speaking it to him. So she's saying, "How can we women know you?" Like she's looking at Krishna. So it's out of, humility that that such exalted devotees do this. And I just feel like the whole concept also of, or the whole, yeah, I guess concept of devotees, especially in householder life, like presenting themselves throughout Bhagavatam and CC as like, oh, we're so unfortunate, like us unfortunate householders, like just sense enjoyers, this and that. I mean, even in the bhajans, by our great acharyas, presenting themselves like this. Um, but actually, they're so exalted. They're so exalted. I mean, that's like whole other classes in and of themselves. They're doing so much service. They're like spreading Krishna. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is like the classic example. There's so many, yeah, so many more. So anyway, I think that might be all that I wanted to speak on. If I'll just open it up for questions and comments now, and then if there's not enough, then well, there usually is. But if there's not enough, then I'll go through some of the other verses. Hare Krishna, comes through.
For the night class, I have two comments. The first is a small correction.
Yes.
and that the reason that the rulers had to like learn the Vedas and know all these things wasn't because they had to rule over the brahmanas, sages, because they actually didn't rule over the sages.
Yeah, they're taking guidance.
Yeah, because actually, if the ruler tries to rule over the brahmanas and sages,
Yeah.
that means they're wicked rulers. They wear these things so that they can recognize who was a brahmana. That's only the brahmanas actually had complete freedom. Everybody else was controlled. So it's just that. And then this other point of actually that the uh, like gifts of nature uh, come from righteous living is actually extremely important. Because even when we take up devotional service and read Prabhupada's books, we still have this idea of the advancement of civilization, what Prabhupada called the so of civilization. And really, even like the uh, environmental movements of today get it completely wrong in multiple ways. One is, of course, that they want to uh, save the planet, but also want to have the same standard of sense of gratification that modern society gives you. So it's like trying to have your cake and eat it too. So then they come up with ridiculous small scale solutions, like, oh, don't, use a plastic cup, or which I mean, it might do a little bit of a thing, but it's like sitting, like, you stub your toe and then got your arm chopped off, and then you're worried about the stubbed toe instead of your arm being
Keep
chopped
ordering
off.
on Temu.
Yeah.
No plastic cups with order.
So, like even on that level, um, it's very ineffective. And then also even like the idea, I think a lot of devotees still carry this idea around with them that actually modern society is better for sense gratification. But actually, Krishna's system is, agrarian and simple living. It's not that Krishna couldn't create factories and, all these political institutions and, Amazon and plastic. Like he could have created those things if he wanted to. He's like, omnipotent. But he didn't create those things. And the culture that is most pleasing to him and most pleasing to us, because we're part and parcel of it, is actually the culture of Varnashram Dharma, which is agrarian simple living. Without all these modern contrivances. And I think, I know when I first came into devotional service, I think a lot of devotees, and I would include myself in aspects of this, think that actually like the simple living is the austerity. Actually, it's trying to live in modern culture. That's the austerity itself. Because it's completely different than our natural position. And actually causes just way more suffering and confusion than actually if we were able to live in a simple living way. And we only think that the Varnashram system is, so austere and suffering because we're too attached to city life. Yes. So yeah, there's some thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, on the first one, I totally agree with you. I kind of been seeing like the, I guess, beginnings of this work that it's like, yeah, the brahmanas have to be they're putting in all the time to like study the Vedic literature and everything. So it is natural and it is the way it works that the brahmanas are on top, so to speak, or keeping everything in check. I probably didn't explain it. Maybe didn't explain it very well, but I'm going to send that purport because it was very interesting. I don't even remember Prabhupada saying it like that. Like, so, and then on the second one, yeah, it's quite amazing. He really drove home the point for me that we just create so many inconveniences. Actually, by one convenience, you create so many inconveniences. Like a very simple example is the type of cloth that we wear. Like I remember in New Zealand in the ashram, I really got this point, I guess by association, by hearing about it, driven into me that like natural fabrics like cotton and silk and wool are the best. And at first I'm like, sounds like just a fanatical thing or whatever, like what's wrong with synthetic, basically. And then I remember over time, both there and then I got here, and like if you get synthetic sari, for example, and you're like, oh, looks, so why can't they make the other ones like this? They have such nice patterns. And then you wear it, man, why am I sweating? Or like something. And you're just like, this is horrible. And then it's like, let's just say, I mean, I guess both in this example and also just in general, it's like, okay, well, now you need deodorant. Now you need, like, it's just, you get one opulence and then you're like, now I have to shower more often or not, whatever. That it's just like you get one thing that is seemingly for your sense gratification, and then it sets off a chain reaction of you need. Whereas if you wear just cotton or something natural, then it's have all these problems, and also you don't need a clothes washer or like this or that. Like cotton, you can just easily like hand wash, dry it, something like that.
Yeah, that also, like, not only does it create more complications, like personally, but also politically, because clever demons are able to understand that as long as they keep the people satisfied with these artificial things, then they won't actually stop, like, won't actually fight against their,
Like TV,
yeah,
keep them
their,
satisfied.
like, nefarious activities. Like, the example that comes to mind is the whole thing of Jeffrey Epstein,
Mhm.
right? Like, it basically came out in the news that a lot of the people running the world are, just, you know, conspiracy theory level, like, shadow government pedophiles.
Yeah.
And then nothing happened,
Yep.
right? Like, because everybody's just watching it on TV and it's like, yeah, that sucks. But because everybody else
Getting a lot of good movies
yeah,
and a
but
lot.
that's funny. It's like, oh well, like, I'm going to go back to the next movie or
Yeah.
TV show or poisonous food or everything. Like, people just don't realize, like, people don't do anything about it. So it's like,
Yeah.
even like at the top levels, like, people realize that if they keep the people suppressed this way, then they can go on with their nefarious activities because the people will be so pacified by the mode of ignorance that they can just keep, you know, doing their nonsense.
I was just like, sorry, this is the last thing I'll say, and then devotees have comments. But I was explaining to one devotee not from the US what spam and Velveeta are, it's for like a craft single, and I was like, this is not even.
Most of the food that's here isn't actually food.
Yeah, it is not food. I'm like, I don't think Velveeta has any cheese in it. Does it even have milk in it? Like, so yeah, just like growing up, you have
Cooked it in a laboratory.
yeah, you
It's a
have
science
you have
experiment.
spam and Velveeta on Wonder Bread, and then it's like you wonder why you have to go to the doctor. And then so it just sets off a chain reaction of yes, we have these artificial things that can gratify the senses temporarily, and then you have a whole you got no nutritional value. And now you just gain weight or you get some whatever you just put plastic basically into your body, and then you have to go to the doctor like this and that. So yes, it is truly an artificial civilization, as Prabhupada says. Thank you for bringing up these points. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Doesn't have to be about fake chemical food in the US. Thank you, Tarika Prabhu, for sending that verse from Lord Chaitanya.
I would like to thank you for a nice class, and I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more about um, the concept that Srila Prabhupada referred to um, in the where is it, first canto. There is the verse includes the phrase Sarvakama Dukamahi. Where is that? Yeah, that's first canto, chapter 10, text 4. Come on, Pravarsha, Arjan Yat, Sarvakama Dukamaki, Tishu, Tishu, tongue tie today. Shish Shi Chu, Ma Rajangava, Haya Das Vatir Mudha. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed. The earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. The Srila Prabhupada has spoken a whole lot about this. And it's important to us here at Gita Nagari because we are a farm. Srila Prabhupada talks about the importance of land and that land is real wealth, and that, as this verse implies, all the necessities of life come from the earth, from the land. Virtually everything that we rely upon, everything comes from the land. And the Prabhupada used to explain that the idea of scarcity is generally false. The earth sometimes withholds its opulence when its resources are being exploited by the demoniac, but otherwise the earth creates more than sufficient opulences to supply the necessities of even well, Srila Prabhupada says that the earth could sustain a human population 10 times its present level. And this actually is who is it? Which I can't recall his name now. There is one sannyasi who talking to some professionals in India, where under the British rule, record keeping was extremely important, and it was discovered relatively recently that in those records there are records of agricultural production, which was at a level 10 times what what India is currently producing. So,
Wow.
and interestingly, that was done without the benefit of tractors and modern chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So, just cows tilling the earth, and simple hand implements, 10 times the agricultural production that they have now. It's all documented. It's not imaginary. It's not propaganda. It's real. It's there in black and white. It was actually done. Anyway, anything you could add about this concept of Sarvakama Dukamahi? I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I had two thoughts. One from the kind of um maybe negative side of why it's so hard to accept, and the other from the other side where it's like really personalism. I feel is like the basis of this kind of relationship between, I mean, it's Mother Bhumi. So if we don't even have, okay, I'll talk about, we don't even have the conception that like the earth, there's a presiding deity of the earth, and that is supposed um with her, then it's going to be very hard to like, yeah, it's going to be very hard to I guess either we benefit or also like take care of her, and then things just flow naturally. So that was just one thought. that I had is I feel it's actually quite essential. And I think that the people that successfully lived off the land, even materially, like let's just say Native Americans, for example, it's like, well, um, I mean, I can't speak for all of them, but what we're taught is that they did have this very like attuned relationship with the earth, that and practice a lot of gratitude that they're getting these gifts from the earth, and therefore they want to take care of her. So becomes a very reciprocal relationship, and even that's not on the level of what the Vedas are talking about, where it's like Krishna's in the center, but even that like beginning step of personalism is a very essential part of the reciprocal relationship. So, um, and then one other thing that I wanted, because we only have 2 minutes left, is that if that's absent, so let's say in the US schools, we're taught like, I think I brought up the Oregon Trail the other day. Basically, the conception has been hardwired into at least my American brain, and probably those who are of a similar generation. I can't speak for what was taught before that, but is that whenever people did try to live off the land, like after, the 1700s and they came to America and they tried, everybody basically died or got like, some horrible disease. Like we used to have to play this game in elementary school, like a video game thing called the Oregon Trail. And it's like, if you don't have the money for the right medicine, then your wife's gonna die and this, and that. So it's like it's been hardwired that like living off the land doesn't work. And therefore what's better is that we have factories and things because that's more sustainable and you're gonna get paid and the sense gratification is better and your wife's not gonna die a week from now and like that. So do you,
Be a very happy slave.
yeah, be a happy slave of your senses.
No, not even of your senses, of the factory.
Oh, of the factory. Well, yeah. So anyway, I guess I could probably comment on it more if I thought more about it, but those were just two, two things that I thought is why it's so hard to accept. Like, and Prabhupada in this purport is really, I love this purport because he's like, just asking question after question, basically debunking that, this material civilization, the way we're doing things is successful. He's just question after question. He's like, has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whims of a particular man? And yeah, he also we took apart this purport. He also brings up so many points we could discuss in relation to what you're asking about, Sarka Prabhu. But the conch shell has sounded. Thank you, dear devotees. Bye. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jaya Shri Shri Radha Damodar. Hare Krishna.